Good evening. Welcome to Health Quest. I'm Deborah Arneson, your host for tonight. We have an amazing show for you. We're going to lift some of the facts and fallacies about organic, not organic, the difference between organic, natural, and almost organic, or maybe organic. So again, once again, we have these two wonderful guests. We have Merle and John Clark of Roseland Organic Farms. They've been a guest on my show a number of times before, and they've kept us in the loop about what's going on in Washington. And tonight we're going to talk a bit more about what's going on the state level. And for the best meat and chicken organically grown since 1980, which is a miracle, we're going to teach you why organic and what really organic is all about. We want to thank John and Merle for taking the time to drive all the way up here from their farm in Michigan. They do drop ship, by the way, straight to your front door, so they don't have to drive the meat up. They can actually send it to you. But John, thank you for being here. It's great having you back. Merle?
Good to be back.
Good to be here. Yeah, I know what an effort this is. You guys have busy lives, so we just have to thank you again for taking the time.
Chicago traffic, a little bit different from Michigan.
Oh, rush hour, I'm sorry.
But we were coming in, not going out, so it was a little bit better.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, now that October 21st has passed, 2003 is a new year, and we've got new laws and new rules, right? That tell us what the rules are for organic, and they're finally in place in Washington, and everybody pretty much has to subscribe to those. Are there any issues left for us consumers to worry about?
Well, I've worried about at least one thing that comes to mind is the allowance for manures from any source to use for organic fertilization possibilities and whatever, on fruits, vegetables, or whatever, because to me that means the potential for using confinement animal feedlot manures or things that you can't just sort of cook the chemicals out of. There's antibiotics in some of these animals, and I've thought for a long time that that was way too loose a standard to allow.
So are fertilizers still loose? I mean, I thought there were no rules actually as far as what a fertilizer could be sourced from.
Well, it depends on the fertilizer that people buy and package. There's the fish meals and all those kinds of things, which is another form of not a form of manure, another form of a ground-up animal. And I think both of us are kind of agreeing that some of those are questionable, but too, because you're not sure of the source of the fish and what else, and there's PCBs and a lot of the stuff. And actually you're taking a source, even the plant material, the ocean algae, all those kinds of things, are things that actually needed to be in the ocean. They create a lot of the oxygen formation and so forth in the water. So it's an ecological, we think, a problem. You're bagging up all this stuff and not knowing quite where it's coming from, and then saying, here, put it down on your organic crops. So
if you're buying as a consumer organic crops, you would like to be assured that the fertilizer and the manure that's used is also organic.
So the things that we
Is that a rule? Do they have to use organic fertilizers and organic manure to grow?
Well, there's no such thing as an organic fertilizer. I mean, a lot of people like to put the word on there because they use the word in a general way rather than, you know, certified organic product. It's just like organic carbonaceous kind of product kind of stuff. So anything that's a plant or animal byproduct or whatever. But in this day and age, you can't just use any animal byproduct and say it's okay for
So what protection do consumers have when they buy organic to really believe that their foods are grown organically?
Well, there's a lot of questions.
Organic means no pesticide and no sprays, right? No
well,
chemicals.
Then there's the other thing. It doesn't necessarily mean no pesticides, because some pesticides are called natural, and they are, however, composed of a lot of like 80% other stuff that sometimes isn't on the label. It could be an active kind of ingredient, but not called that. Could be surfactants, different kinds of things.
So are we happy with these new rules?
Are we what?
Are we happy with them?
I'm not.
I don't think we should be, from the sounds of this.
Let me go back to your original question. We have new laws and there's nothing new about the law. The law's been on the books for 13 years. And it took USDA 12 years, 12 and a half, to finally do what the legislative intent was to do. But they're still not doing it because they have changed the law without legislative input. And that's, you know, this I hate to get political at this moment, but all the administrations since the Organic Food Production Act was passed in 1990 have been guilty of what the present one is even more guilty of, and that is trying to be both the executive branch and the legislative branch. And recently, when the University of Michigan's affirmative action case, they even tried to tell the courts what to do. I thought we had a separation of powers according to the Constitution, and the
Now
way
they're
that
all sleeping together, John.
the way the USDA has treated the Organic Food Production Act, it's if one wants to be a legal scholar and set some precedents, I think this would be a great place to challenge the executive branch and say, you cannot do this, make rules that are contrary to legislative intent. And that's really what we have with the Organic Food Production Act. The statute itself is very, very good, with maybe one or two exceptions, and we have something like 105 violations of the legislative intent and the letter of the statute in the rule, and it's getting worse
Because more and more people
every
are
time
stretching
the
the rule.
NOSB, the National Organic Standards Board, meets, they add on more synthetics and more questionable materials
Why? Who's in
without
charge
proper
of
review
that?
to the national list of permitted substances.
Who allows
in
that to
organic.
happen, though?
USDA and
Well, they shouldn't be in charge of that.
the National Organic Standards Board is supposed to be in charge of it, but even when they were doing it right, USDA was trying to change that.
Is that a federally appointed committee?
Yes.
Well,
and
then there has to be some kind of separation of, you know, these kinds of rules and the people commissioned to put these into position, into action.
they're an advisory board, but they have a lot more power than most advisory boards under USDA because Congress mandated their review of certain things and their authority over certain things.
And so who are, well, the people on the committee have to be somewhat tied in with different groups and organizations that benefit from...
Merrill was a charter member of the National Organic Standards Board, and out of 13 members, only 3 had any real experience and perspective on what organic was and should be. And during the 4 years she served on the board, there was no effort on the part of the board or USDA to review the statute. That seemed just ludicrous to me, that here was an advisory board appointed to promulgate the Organic Food Production Act, and they didn't want to look at what the statute required them to do.
Why?
I can't explain it except that USDA has been hostile to organic and still is.
So then how are
Still,
consumers protected?
the committee should be obviously the ones that would have
Non-biased.
set the tone, not the
Right,
USDA,
right.
which some of us really tried to do. But in some cases, well, for instance, like livestock, I mean, there was nobody who understood what
How it
organic
works.
meat, what's
Right.
that? You know, it was like strawberries, herbs, nuts, you know, lettuce. They understood what that meant for being organic. Well, what they didn't used to, but not necessarily when they write the law. Things got a little bit tighter, and when you needed. But you know, there's the National Organic Standards Board meets around the country all the time. Nobody really kind of knows unless you're kind of like in the know. And we've gone to a few since then, and people change, and then they suddenly and now it's sort of a burgeoning industry, and people kind of really want to get into it now. And that's a little tough, isn't it? Well, can't we just loosen that up a little bit? So I mentioned to you earlier the
Wow.
Georgia chicken producer who had his conventional chicken outfit in Georgia went to his legislature and said, you know, I want organic chicken, but I don't want to feed them organically. The law requires that organic animals be fed 100% organic feed. I can't get it. Ooh, it's too expensive. Don't want to bother raising it.
Right.
Could you do something for me? So they stuck
Changed
something
the
in
law.
the appropriations bill, 4,000 pages that nobody read, and presto, they took the whole thing out of the law, and it said,
Amazing.
you know, you don't have to do that for a year until we can prove that it's commercially available for use for organic production. Well, anybody, we're raising organic feed. If you want to do organic chickens, get somebody to raise your organic feed.
Or
That's
do it
just the way it
yourself.
goes. And that's how you grow the industry, by someone creating a need for this, somebody then does it, and they have a
So
place
you
to sell.
guys, just listening to you for the last 5 minutes, and I'm a pretty savvy consumer because this is what I love and I'm passionate about, but if I didn't know what I knew, I'd be like, well, the hell with it. This is too much
Well,
work.
it sounds like, well, why bother? Because, you know, John's saying, well, this is riddled and this isn't so good and this and that. But, which is why I want to turn around and tell consumers, they just can't go up and just grab any old thing. Oh, it says organic. Well, there's something about it, and some things that they really, really need to know before they go into some
Okay.
into stores.
And a lot of
and
this-
pay attention to the stuff that's coming out from
Well, let's
the
get through the
USDA,
questions because I
whatever.
think most of these questions will be answered then. John, what about the terms almost organic or better than organic or even natural, which people see so much
well,
of?
natural has no definition and no
It means
regulation.
nothing.
Means nothing.
Pretty much
Okay,
nothing.
good.
Almost organic is, you know, you're not, according to the Organic Food Production Act, you're not organic until you're certified under the statute. Even if
Okay.
it's not promulgated
says
right, you
almost
still have to
organic,
be certified.
Pasadena.
And
Well, everything where they try to sort of modify the word somehow,
Right.
but they
Abuse
don't
the
know anything
word.
about certification.
beyond organic
Just sounds-
is the latest scam where they try to pretend that, well, you don't have to be organic if you're feeding animals all grass, no matter whether the grass was sprayed last year, no matter whether it's not your grass and you're hauling in grass
So
hay or whatever.
People should look for something certified on a label. Certified by whom? If
By,
it's truly organic.
An accredited certifier.
Well,
And who would that be?
well, there could be Oregon Hills, it could be Organic Crop Improvement. There's about 50 of them out
Okay.
there, all different names. But if it actually says certified and a name behind it, obviously they're not going to be able to have a checklist. Is this really
Could
a certifier?
someone put a fake certified label on their food?
They
I
could.
don't think so.
And
Somebody catch that.
in other words, the consumer has still got to be ready to be a whistleblower
Mm-hmm.
because USDA doesn't have the money or the time or the inclination to enforce what they're required to enforce under this statute. And the consumer has a right to know, and organic farmers are making claims. Those claims should be honest. Almost every other regulatory statute is meant to be a floor. This is the minimum standards. You can go higher. USDA has tried to make this a ceiling and told certifiers and farmers that you can't make claims beyond what is in the statute. Well, that's ridiculous. We go way beyond with our claims on our meat, and those claims are registered with USDA, have been before the law was even passed by Congress, let alone the promulgation. And if I don't use parasiticides and USDA says they're permitted under organic, I should be able to make that claim, and I do.
Right. Good.
And I don't think the idea that certifiers or growers can't make additional claims
Right, is nonsense.
is just ridiculous.
Because it sets you apart from other people, and then people start asking questions. And
The
then they'll be
problem
like,
with the way the organic movement is progressing at the moment is it's all moving toward corporate control, distributor control. And when you buy a package of something, it doesn't have the grower's name on it. I think this is ludicrous. Organic should be source identified.
Right.
The grower should be transparent. There should be no secrets.
Responsibility and culpability if need be.
If you find a package of organic and it doesn't have some way to figure out who grew it and where,
Who's going to take responsibility?
look on the next bin or something. You know, it's
Right.
just.
Okay, what if any pesticides are still used or allowed in organic fruits and vegetables?
Well, there's things called pyrethrums, there's rotenone, other kinds of something called BT, which
How
is a
many
sort
are
of
allowed?
bacillus, kind of a bacteria product. How many?
Less
well,
than 50?
Oh, yeah. But there's different formulations of the same thing. And the
How
problem when
dangerous
I was
are
on
they?
the board, when they were trying to determine, well, let's see, what do these inert ingredients mean, like 80% inert, which is an awful lot of something you don't know. And what we were trying to say from the organic perspective is that we can't allow something that we can't know about. But EPA doesn't release inert ingredients because there are trade secrets for the businesses that create
So
the pesticides.
we as consumers don't get to know what the inert
No,
ingredients
we didn't
are?
know. You'd have a
That's
list
such
so long,
hogwash.
and you say rotenone, no, 0.1% or
What does that
something.
mean?
It means that it's very, very little rotenone, and this is supposed to be the natural substance, which is the organic kind of pesticide. Well, I clamored against those for a long time because there's so many other things you can do with beneficial
Naturally,
insects
right.
and pest control and all the great things that some of the really good early on organic farmers have always done, was to create a healthy crop, have a balance of insects so that you have the predator, the prey relationship going on. And rotenone is a humongous fish killer. So they use it deliberately to kill fish.
Wow.
A long, long time ago. And they still do, and they've had accidents where all kinds of, if you put it in the water and streams and something, actually the DNR in Michigan had to sue itself because it killed fish with rotenone.
The
So you
deliberate
don't want
use-
this on an organic crop.
The
my
deliberate
gosh.
use of a poison is not consistent with organic.
No, it's
And
not.
even though the national list process allows the possibility of this, if you follow the way the law is drafted, there's very little chance that any of those would come through. But yet, they're on there. They're still being used by organic farmers. And
Who came up with the list of the allowable pesticides?
There's language in this statute that says that the otherwise avoidable use of materials, like if you import manure, you know something's in it. So it's avoidable because you could either use your own manure that's generated on your own organic farm or find an organic farmer
Right.
with excess manure. And that's a otherwise avoidable, and therefore it should be prohibited. But they've allowed all this stuff to keep creeping back in, and it goes right along with the public's general perception of what organic is. Oh, lots of manure. And guys that don't even have livestock,
So
some of
people
them
can-
have that idea
Well,
that
so
you know,
here's the
I've got to
deal.
get some manure.
Here's
When
the
they can be
question.
rotating legumes.
People can
And-
grow fruits and vegetables and label it organic without organic manure at this point. Is that correct?
Well, they can, if they're using manure, yeah, they can use it from any source.
But
Well, that stinks.
the sad
No
thing
pun
is that you
intended.
don't even need to use manure, period. We
Well,
have,
what she's saying is
we have a
can
lot
they?
of manure that
And they can.
sits in composting piles, and we don't rush
Okay,
it right out there.
John, here's the question though. Let's stay focused on this, because if I go buy an organic apple at Whole Foods, how do I know they're using organic feed or manure for the animal? I mean, you know, on the
Organic
crops. or-
fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizers.
You have to trust
Their certification.
their certifier,
to whomever.
or
They're not buying anything that hasn't been certified.
go
to a
directly to the
standard.
grower and ask a whole bunch of questions. Go to the orchard. Nothing has really changed.
Do they have any paperwork? Because I actually called when I was looking, we had Whole Foods, you know, and I was asking about their beef because they had told one of my clients that they actually had, their beef was grown in Australia or New Zealand, and if it came out of New Zealand, it was organic. Then they quit carrying the New Zealand, everything except the lamb. But there was still the intent, or the information was going out there that it was organically grown meat. So I said, I'd like to see your certifications on the organically grown meat. And then the manager said, no, our meat is not organically grown. We do the best we can. When we can get organic feed, that's what we use.
But
So-
they were hoping that you would think
never
it
ask.
was.
But
So as long as you didn't ask,
But then I
when
called
you did ask, they
the
had to
purveyor out in Utah or Montana, wherever they're at, and I said, okay, I'd like to know what you use. I'd like a list of everything. I'd like to know what your kill procedures are. I'd like to know if it's a humane kill. I would like to know if the animal has extreme stress before it dies. I'd like to know all these things. And they're like, well, we do everything according to the FDA and the USDA. I said, I'm sorry, that's not good enough for me as a consumer, because you know what, their laws are lax, and they're letting pesticides and 6,000 chemicals, herbicides, and compounds come into our food chain that are carcinogenic, and they cause cancer. So you know what, if you're being like kissed with the gift of the FDA and the USDA, we're in trouble as consumers with your meats.
Yeah, that hasn't taken us up a step to organic at all. It's just we're still in the
No.
same level with the same agencies doing the same thing. Well, one thing that's important, I think, for consumers to know too, is that these levels of these seals or stickers or labels or whatever that can go on, and this is very strange because the law itself said organic, at least 90, they said only organic was the really organic kind of thing. Then they went up to 100% organic, thinking, well, I guess there are going to be a few people out there who actually are, but there's not going to be that many. So we better have organic for that step down place, for that 5% that isn't. So this would be something that people want to look at kind of carefully. And then there's a made with organic ingredients, which means 70% of the product is organic. And they can say made with organic peas, beans,
If you leave
and-
that with
and
me, we'll
barley.
go ahead and give this to people. We'll mail it out
Yeah,
to people
and this
or
is
email it
7
to
tips
them.
for buying organic. Michigan Organic Food and Farm Alliance in Michigan, that I'm a part of,
Okay.
has put together these fact sheets. And this is one of the important things that's going to make organic food work, is that the consumers start demanding and knowing more, and asking what you're asking. Where's the certification for this? Oh, I'm sorry, I guess they weren't certified after all. You know, that's a little late. I mean, everybody's
Right.
saying, oh, it's certified, I'll buy it, you know,
Right.
rather than say, let me see the paperwork.
Right.
So it's you know, I'm certainly not trying to, you know, let's hit all the bad points we could think of about organic here, and keeping, oh, well, I guess I won't bother with it because, you know,
Well,
it's kind of more expensive
is there anyone really
anyway.
looking out for the consumer? Is there anyone protecting consumers' rights when they buy something organic, they're actually truly getting it? I mean, can we count on a Whole Foods to do that for us?
Well, I'd go for a smaller store. Whole Foods, unfortunately, has sort of kind of mass marketed organic a little bit more, publicly traded. They're kind of looking for, you know, high dollar, and they're big, they're glossy, they're glitzy.
So
There's
organic
not enough
farmers?
organic in Whole Food markets.
Where does the money come from at Whole Foods? Mostly from investors. And the real growers don't have stockholders. We can't go out and say, well, we need to issue another 100,000 shares
Right.
because we got to buy a tractor.
There were probably 2 or 3 small, nice neighborhood organic health food stores in Evanston, different
And they have-
areas around, and they've just been, you know, pushed out by Whole
Or
Food
they've been
markets
bought
or,
out
or Wild Oats, which
by
is
Whole
another one.
Foods.
So,
And in public forum, in a publication about 7 years ago, spokesman from Whole Foods said, now, get this straight. We don't represent consumers and we don't represent producers. We represent our team members, our stockholders, and that's it.
So we're a corporation, and there you have it. Goodbye.
Yeah.
thanks for calling.
So, all right, let's talk about you guys, because you guys are spectacular. How long have you been farming? Since 80?
76.
Oh, we bought the farm way
76?
back then, yeah.
Okay, and your background is in
Biochemistry.
biochemistry, and John left that lucrative world of biochemistry, making chemicals and drugs and soups like that we could put on our foods that weren't organic, to become an organic farmer with his lovely wife Meryl, and they actually have broken their necks to bring this amazing food to our tables. And they have a farm in, where is it in Michigan?
It's in
Cassopolis,
Cassopolis, Michigan, southwest corner.
Yep, and it's not too far from here, and they welcome people to come over and take a look at their farm and see how they treat their animals. Everything on their farm is completely organic except for the salt lick.
It's like an hour and a half, perhaps, from Chicago.
not
We have
far.
a lot of people who come over. They got their little lake cottage, something
Oh,
up on the Lake
nice.
Michigan, and on their way back, they pick up their meat and come back
Is that
home again.
great?
So,
Well, I'm
that
coming
works.
down this year. I
Yeah,
am. I'm
okay.
going to get a break.
Finally.
About time,
Finally
yeah.
is right. It's like I'm chained to my desk. Okay, we still don't see much certified organic meat in the marketplace. In fact, we never see it. I don't see it. So why?
Well, there isn't a lot of it out there, and what little is has a lot of it's been
Tampered with?
consolidated into a distributor, and it gets, you know, there's one kind of organic meat from one distributor or one co-op instead of my meat, George's meat, Jan's meat, etc.
Well, it also goes back to the almost, maybe, close to organic. People are getting by with that. Natural beef, free range. They're trying to think of other things they can call it
Right.
that makes it sound as good as certified organic. But that
So look
isn't the
for
case
certified
really at
organic.
all. And then there's the whole processing part of it, whether we have to certify the USDA inspected processing plants
Mm-hmm.
and going into that big thing. And I think there's people who just want to think they want to capitalize on the fruits and vegetables
All
part
right,
of it.
let's talk about you guys, because we got 5 minutes. It goes really
Okay.
fast
Yeah,
here.
doesn't it?
Your new label for Roseland Organic Beef has some new information on it. So I'm going to read this to our viewing audience, because this is important information, and hopefully you guys will give me a copy of this, and we can put this out there for our consumers to know this is what they need to ask purveyors like a Whole Foods or other stores or mom and pop distributors who are making claims that they have natural and organic foods.
Or you could hold it up and I'll read it.
It's too hard
Too
to
hard to
actually
read?
hold up. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Since 1980, free-range animals have been raised from conception without antibiotics, without hormones, without genetically modified organisms, which we are what we call Frankenstein viruses, pesticides or drugs, and only on Roseland pasture, dry grain, and hay. Feed grown and stored without pesticides or synthetic fertilizers, no synthetic vitamins or supplements, amino acids, or animal byproducts. Certified organic by the Indiana Certified Organic Board. And then you have your USDA organic, you have your US inspected and passed by the Department of Agriculture, and then you have safe handling instructions. So
Now, what we couldn't say forever and a day was organic farms.
You're
And we
kidding.
couldn't say organic beef. We could say beef, we could say only on Roseland farms.
Wow.
And this is why, and that's another reason why I think people haven't gotten into meat. Because they were disallowed to say that it was
Right.
You saw organic crackers from like 5,000
they've got
years
more
ago.
money to lobby in Washington than you guys do. You know that's the reason. Okay. All right. The use of manure and sludge and sewage sludge is an issue, so that's
We did a
something
little
they're
bit
still
about that.
using. Yep. And food retailers and restaurants that sell or serve organic food, they don't need to be certified, right?
Right, and actually they're not using sewage sludge, but somebody was sending out an email thinking that the USDA was bringing that back again. That was one of those
Gross.
big three that everybody wrote into, and they said, no irradiation,
Apparently,
no
there's some effort to try to bring
organisms.
that all back.
Sewer sludge back
sewage sludge.
for fertilizer. Is that just disgusting?
The
or
fact
what?
that restaurants that are representing what they're offering is organic, or stores that handle and repackage things, retailers, that's contrary to the statute. They are supposed to be. The statute said you will be certified, and the rule says no, you don't have to be certified.
Okay, well, with
So
your
that's
guys'
another one of
help,
those let's break the statute by
again,
USDA.
and consumers really have to demand this, but they need to know what is and what isn't, so perhaps you could conjoin with me to put together a little punch list for consumers that we can hand them, you know, when they go grocery shopping. Here's
Something
what you
stick
need
in the
to
purse,
ask.
put by the phone, and also just where, and hopefully you can put up the address, phone number, website of the USDA National Organic Program people to make complaints or make suggestions, and they got to listen to that
Well,
stuff.
we actually have a list of, I think it's over here. I'm going to give you guys a phone number, right? This guy's at the USDA, Organic National Program, USDA, called area code 202-720-3252. The website is www.ams.usd.gov/NOP/. So again,
NOP means National Organic Program.
National Organic Program. This is the Organic National Program, the USDA, and the person you want to talk to is Richard Matthews. He's the program director, and he can tell you pretty much anything you need to know and send you out information. If you don't get enough there, come back to us and we'll be happy to help you. But there is so much to know as a consumer about what we are and are not getting in our food chain based on organic rules and laws, and how much different food purveyors who want to be part of the apple pie. Like, as far as I understand, there are many people who are not organic who want to say they have organic, and so they'll do part of their cattle with organic feed if they can get it, and if not, but they want to label everything organic, which totally, it's false. I mean, it means consumers are getting whatever, and they think they're paying for and buying organic, and they can jack that price up, you know, crank up the price. Consumers pay more for less, because, you know, you are what you eat. It's pretty simple.
Well, and you need to remember, too, that some of the people buying organic food are requiring, because of chemical sensitivities and so forth, they have horrible
they need to know
reactions
what's going on.
to food that says it is but
Yep.
isn't.
And we
It's,
can get into that in
real
our next
danger.
show. John and Merle, we want to thank you for being here. It was wonderful. John and Merle Clark of Roseland Farms in Michigan. If you need more information on how to get a hold of them, please give me a call. Until next week, take good care of your health. We hope this helped a little bit, and certainly if you need more information, we have more to offer. Just give us a jingle. I'm Deborah Arneson with Health Quest. Good night. God bless.